Hello everyone! Today we will be talking about visual organization. In the early 20th century, psychologists noticed that people tended to organize sensations into a Gestalt, which is a German word meaning a form or a whole. In pointing out the whole may exceed the sum of its parts, they noted that we filter sensory information and construct our perceptions. To recognize an object, we must first perceive it. For example, see it as a figure, as distinct from its surroundings, the ground. In psychology, this is called figure ground. We bring order and form to stimuli by organizing them into meaningful groups, following such rules as proximity, continuity, and closure. Grouping is the perceptual tendency to organize stimuli into coherent groups.
Binocular cues give us our natural ability to determine where in space an object sits relative to our own body. Charles Wheatstone was the first psychologist to determine the depth perception was a cue of binocular disparity, and he also invented the stereoscope, which took two images from different angles and combined them into one, increasing depth perception.
As objects move, we assume that shrinking objects are retreating and enlarging objects are approaching. A quick succession of images on the retina can create an illusion of movement, as in the phi phenomenon. The phi phenomenon is an illusion of movement created when two or more adjacent lights blink on and off in a quick succession. This is similar to when objects disappear and reappear, which make the objects seem to be in movement. Binocular cues are also a part of this perception. This is depth cues, such as interposition and linear perspective, available to either eye alone. This is shown when you are driving and you perceive the horizon as a horizontal line, or the rest of the road continues to shrink or increase in size as you get nearer and nearer the horizon.
Experience guides are perceptual interpretations. Some perceptual abilities, such as color and figure ground perception, are inborn. But people blind from birth who gain sight after surgery lack the experience to visually recognize shapes, forms, and complete faces. Sensory restriction research indicates that there is a critical period for some aspects of sensory and perceptual development. Without early stimulation, the brain's neural organization doesn't develop normally. Given eyeglasses that shift the world slightly to left or right, turn it upside down or reverse it, people can, through perceptual adaptation, which is the ability to adapt to a certain environment through the filtering out of interferences, learn to move about with ease.
Depth perception is the ability to see objects in 3 dimensions and judge distance. The visual cliff and other research demonstrates that many species preserve the world in 3 dimensions at or very soon after birth. Binocular cues such as retinal disparity, the way your left eye and your right eye view slightly different images, are the depth cues that rely on information from both eyes. Monocular cues such as relative size, interposition, relative height, relative motion, linear perspective, light, and shadow allow us to judge depth using information transmitted by only one eye.
Perceptual consistency is to perceive a familiar object as if it has the same color, shape, size, and brightness regardless of the stimuli changes that occur and in contrast. Color consistency is the tendency to perceive familiar objects as having consistent color, even if changing illumination alters the wavelength reflected by the object.
Thanks for listening. We hope you learned something new from our crash course on visual organization.